Discovered. The heartwarming moment. A millionaire cried over a hidden necklace from a waitress. The aroma of brewing coffee and sizzling bacon filled the bustling cafe, an ordinary morning masked with extraordinary chance. Grace, a 32-year-old single mother and devoted waitress, darted through the crowded tables, her heart racing with the rhythm of a ticking clock. Lucas, her spunky 5-year-old son, awaited her at home, and every shift was a mountaineering trek through a world of pressed bills and relentless responsibilities. Yet, the moment her smiling eyes met those of the elderly couple sharing pancakes, her heart swelled. Each cup of coffee she poured held the warmth of still living dreams and the stories of strangers who, perhaps for a fleeting moment, had become family. Then there was Michael. A brooding millionaire in his late 40s, he loomed in his usual corner booth, ordering his standard espresso with the weight of silent desires etched on his brow. Clad in an expensive suit that seemed to amplify his isolation, he quietly scrolled through emails, his fingers moving over the screen like a ghost of his former self. Grace noticed the hollow look in his eyes, the way he was shackled to a desk job that choked laughter and love out of his life. The memory of cherished family dinners long forgotten. One fateful afternoon, while clearing the clutter out of a storeroom, Grace stumbled across something unexpected. An old, tarnished necklace, its charm carrying echoes of bravery from a soldier long gone. A sense of purpose ignited inside her, a need to return the artifact to its rightful owner. And, as fate would have it, she discovered that it belonged to Michael's estranged grandfather, a man who felt like an echo, drifting in the cold void of indifference. The truth struck her like a bolt of lightning. This millionaire, so far removed from his roots, was connected to a man eager for connection. How could she approach someone so ensconced in opulence? It ached in her heart, seeing both of their pain, with pride pushing them further apart. But the idea that she could be the bridge inspired her courage. That week, as the cafe hummed with life, she initiated a dialogue that would change everything. She approached Michael, her heart pounding. "I found something. It belongs to your grandfather," she began, her voice a mix of determination and empathy. In that moment, the world around them faded into a blur. Grace shared the story of the necklace, its history, its enduring beauty, the sacrifices attached. A flicker of confusion crossed Michael's face, but it quickly morphed into something deeper, a dawning realization. The echo of laughter and warmth from family dinners reverberated within him, battling the icy solitude that wealth had carved into his life. For the first time, he began to question what success truly meant. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the weeks passed, the cafe transformed. It became a haven where the community thrived off the support shared among patrons. Neighbors recalled the old days, and glimpses of change emerged in Michael. He began engaging with the cafe crew, an unfamiliar smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. The thought of reconciliation loomed on the horizon, but that distance lingered. Would he have the courage to reach out to the very family he had neglected, or would he remain shackled to his empire of loneliness? That question hung heavy in the air, an untouched breath waiting impatiently as hope danced on the precipice of their intertwining paths. As Grace wiped down tables, the warmth of recognition painted her world anew. Would a simple act of kindness spark a bridge between two worlds? Would loss ultimately be turned into love? The answer rested beyond the door, lifetimes hidden behind the veil of pride. The cafe buzzed with life, but at that moment, it felt heavier than usual. Grace watched as Michael sat at his booth, stirring his coffee, an old sorrow clouding his gaze. She sensed the change in him, the tiny flickers of light beginning to break through the shadows he'd crafted around himself. But would he let them in? Anxiety gnawed at her. What if she had stirred feelings too deep for him to handle? With every clattering dish and every laughter shared across the tables, she felt her heart tighten. Lucas, her bright-eyed boy, was her beacon of hope. He reminded her every day why she pushed through. The thought of making a better life for him fueled her courage. But she couldn't shake the fear of how Michael would respond. That afternoon, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden hues across the cafe, Michael caught her eye. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, from contemplation to something more. Grace knew what she had to do. "Hey, Michael," she called, her voice steady even as her heart raced. He looked up, surprised but intrigued. "Can we talk?" His brow furrowed slightly, and for a moment she thought he might refuse. But then he nodded, gesturing for her to come closer. She approached cautiously, trying to gauge his mood. "Do you remember the necklace?" she asked, searching his face for any sign of recognition. "Have you thought about it?" He sighed, his shoulders slumping as though the weight of the world rested there. "I can't stop thinking about it. I never expected to have something from my grandfather, a man I barely knew." He paused, emotions flickering in his eyes. "It feels like a lifeline." Grace felt a rush of warmth. "It is a lifeline, Michael. Isn't it time you reach for it? Maybe it's a sign that it's time to reconnect." For the first time, she saw a crack in his armor, a glimmer of hope splashing against the pain he held within. His voice trembled as he spoke. "I wish I knew how to do that. It feels impossible." "Our pasts don't have to define us, you know?" she replied softly. "Maybe you could start by reaching out. Just take the first step." The vulnerability in his eyes struck her deeply. "I'm afraid. What if they don't want to hear from me?" Grace's heart ached for him, for the isolation he had created. "You won't know until you try. Sometimes the hardest part is just taking that leap." A silence settled between them, thick with unspoken fears. Michael's gaze dropped to the table, and Grace felt the weight of the moment. It was a crossroad, a choice to step into uncertainty or remain in the shadows of what was never fully lived. Suddenly, Lucas burst through the door, waving his hands, laughter spilling from his lips like music. The cafe brightened with the arrival of youthful joy. "Mom, look, I drew a picture of you." He ran up to her, holding out his crumpled masterpiece. Michael looked up. The corners of his mouth quirked slightly. The sight of the little boy seemed to lift some of the darkness surrounding him. "He's got your spirit, Grace." A flicker of hope ignited within her. Maybe he can inspire you too. Just then, Lucas hugged Grace tightly and shouted, "Can we go see Grandma today?" That one question wove a tapestry of possibility in the air around them. Michael's eyes hardened for a moment, caught in a mix of longing and regret. "Let's see Grandma. Together," he whispered, his voice almost breaking. Grace's heart raced. Could it be? A path was opening, yet the fear of what might be still loomed. As they stood there, she could feel the shift, the spark of something new igniting an uncertain future. Would Michael truly follow through, or would he retreat into his fortress of solitude once more? The answer shimmered in the fleeting silence, just waiting for the first brave step to be taken. As the afternoon light poured through the cafe, casting long shadows across the floor, Grace could almost feel the weight of the moment. Michael's eyes flickered, revealing the storm brewing deep inside him. She held her breath, the space between them charged with hope and fear. It was the turning point, and it couldn't just be a passing thought. "Do you really mean it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Will you come with us?" He hesitated, glancing over at Lucas, who was now immersed in showing off his drawing, entirely unaware of the tension swirling in the air. Grace's heart squeezed at the sight of her son's innocent joy. It was in moments like these that life felt so rich, so full of potential. Michael met her gaze, searching her face for something, and she knew it was an invitation. For both of them. "I want to," he finally said, his voice barely audible. "I really want to, but—" He trailed off, and the silence stretched painfully. "But what?" She pressed gently, leaning closer. "You have to let go of whatever's holding you back. Together we can take this step." Lucas, blissfully unaware of the gravity of their discussion, looked up and beamed. "You'll come, right, Mr. Michael? Grandma will be so happy." The boy's enthusiasm was contagious, pulling at the crumpled corners of Michael's guarded heart. "Yes, Lucas." Michael shifted, a nervous smile breaking through. "I'll come." At that moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift a little. Grace felt her heart swell, the first flickers of joy spreading warmth inside her chest. She reached out, resting her hand on Michael's, feeling the tension beneath his skin, urging him silently to let go of his fears. "I know it's hard," she said softly, "but it's not just about you anymore. It's about your family. They're waiting." Michael nodded slowly, the wheels in his mind visibly turning. "I just don't know how they'll react. It's been so long." "Then let today be the first step," Grace replied, her eyes bright with belief. "You've already taken a leap by agreeing to join us. Trust me a little more." He drew in a shaky breath, his expression shifting. It was a mixture of vulnerability and resolution, emotions that seemed foreign to him yet strangely comforting. "I'll try," he said, and the determination in his voice made Grace want to cheer. Lucas grabbed their attention again, pointing to his drawing. "Mom, look! Can we frame it and hang it up at Grandma's? She'll love it." Grace laughed, the sound breaking the tension that had held her captive. "Absolutely. It'll be the perfect gift." Their laughter rang through the cafe, weaving threads of light back into their lives. As they gathered their things, Grace felt a warm sense of possibility enveloping her. Maybe nothing was guaranteed, but they had stepped into something new. As they made their way outside, Lucas skipping ahead, Michael paused, gripping the doorframe as if holding on to the threshold of change. "What if they don't want to see me?" She faced him fully, her heart racing. This was the crux of it all. "You'll never know until you show up. Just let them see the man you've become, not just the boy who left." His eyes shimmered, an emotional battle playing out before her. She'd seen it before, but now it felt charged with urgency, as if the moment could slip away. "Let's go together," Grace said softly, her voice steady despite the way her heart thrummed in her chest. Suddenly, rain started to plummet, each drop a small promise of hope washing away the past. Grace shielded Lucas from the downpour and shot a glance back at Michael, who stood still, almost captivated by what lay ahead. The prospect of family hung heavy in the air, a vivid blend of fear and anticipation. The ground beneath them felt alive with potential, but would Michael take that final step into the unknown? As they ventured into the storm, a question hung in the atmosphere. What awaited them on the other side of that door? The rain drummed steadily against the pavement as Grace huddled close to Lucas, watching Michael take a deep breath. He was still paused at the cafe door, and it struck Grace how the rain mirrored his uncertainty, each drop a reminder of all the years lost to doubts and fears. "Come on, Mr. Michael," Lucas called out, his tiny voice full of excitement, blissfully unacquainted with the weight that lay heavy on their shoulders. "We can jump in puddles." The simple invitation seemed to cut through the heaviness. Michael's lips twitched into a smile, but there was still a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Grace, sensing the moment delicately balanced between panic and resolution, stepped forward. "Let's take that first step together," she urged. With a final glance into the warm, familiar cafe, Michael squared his shoulders and stepped out, joining them in the rain. Lucas squealed with delight, splashing through the puddles, radiating pure joy. Grace couldn't help but chuckle, the sound bubbling up through her chest, infectious and bright, pushing aside the lingering tension. As they ventured onto the sidewalk, each splash brought a hint of laughter. Yet, as Michael walked beside them, he seemed lost in thought. "What will I even say?" he murmured, more to himself than to Grace. "What words can cover the years?" "You start by being honest," Grace replied. "From the heart. Just speak your truth. They'll want to hear you, even if it's difficult." He nodded, the words weighing on him. Ahead, Lucas turned abruptly, eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Can we get ice cream first? I really want strawberry." Michael's brow softened, a hint of humor now mingling with his anxiety. "Sure, buddy. Ice cream first. You lead the way." With that, Lucas took off, sprinting ahead, laughter trailing behind him like a song. Grace watched the boy and then turned to Michael. "You see? He believes in you already. He knows you'll come through." The corners of Michael's mouth lifted, the confidence in Grace's words sparking a flicker of warmth in his chest. "I hope so," he replied, his voice steadier now. The little ice cream shop was small and cozy, brimming with the sweet smell of waffle cones and fresh fruit. Lucas bounced up to the counter, eyes wide, scanning the rainbow of flavors. Grace took a moment to appreciate the scene, the simplicity of it all, the way life twists in unexpected ways. "Do you remember our first ice cream outing?" Grace asked Michael, her smile growing as she recalled the day. "You got chocolate chip cookie dough all over your face." He chuckled, the sound echoing like music in the bustling shop. "I was a mess. There were sprinkles in my hair for days." "It's moments like that which remind us about joy," Grace said softly, searching his gaze, willing him to see the truth in her eyes. "This joy is waiting for you too." As they sat together with their cone-filled cups, each moment unfolding like the sweetest memories, Michael felt a wave of determination wash over him. Lucas was animatedly recounting stories of his drawings, eyes bright with light and unfiltered excitement. It was a warmth Michael hadn't felt in ages. The innocence of his son's joy illuminated a path forward. But as the evening wore on and the time to face his family drew nearer, Michael's stomach twisted. What if they didn't forgive him? What if he had lost them forever? Each thought tugged at his heart, memories flooding in. The laughter shared, the holidays spent wrapped in family warmth. "What if—" he started to say, but Grace's hand on his wrist stopped him. "Just remember, no matter what happens, you're not alone," she said firmly. The sound of her voice cut through his spiraling thoughts like a lifeline. "We've got each other." Lucas, smeared with strawberry ice cream, glanced up and grinned, the innocence of childhood surrounding them with an unshakable bond. Suddenly the challenge seemed less daunting. The fears began to shrink just a bit. Michael's heart raced as the inevitable moment crept closer. Could he do this? Could he face the past he had left behind? As they wrapped up their ice creams, Grace felt the moment shifting again, curiosity dancing in her mind. "Are you ready?" she asked gently, but there was an edge to her question that hinted it wasn't just about the meeting. With the world closing in, Michael gazed at the door that separated the life he knew from the one he longed to embrace. The rain softened, a gentle whisper urging him forward. What awaited him on the other side? Would he find acceptance or heartbreak? Michael stood before the cafe door, rain trickling down his neck, merging the warmth of the memories he cherished with the cold dread of his uncertainty. The sounds from inside, the soft clinking of cups, laughter, and the low hum of conversations, mingled with the tapping of rain, creating a chaotic symphony that left him feeling exposed. Glancing down at Lucas, who was joyfully turning in circles, pretending to dance like a rain-soaked whirlwind, a fragment of hope surged within him. The joy in his son's face was a beacon, lighting a path shrouded in shadow and doubt. But joy wasn't enough to quell the swirling storm inside him. "What if they don't want me back?" he confessed to Grace, his voice barely above a whisper, thick with emotion. "What if I'm too late?" She stepped closer, her eyes soft and understanding. "You'll never know until you try. Sometimes, it's the first step that matters most." Her reassurance wrapped around him like a warm embrace, grounding him amidst the chaos. Lucas, still lost in his own world, tugged at Michael's hand, pulling him forward. "Come on, Daddy. Puddles." With a chuckle, Grace gently nudged Michael. "That's your cue." Her smile sparkled, a glimmer of shared laughter meant to ease the weight pressing down on his shoulders. "I can't let you down," Michael said, swallowing the lump in his throat as he entered the cafe alongside Lucas and Grace. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and pastries enveloped him, instantly bringing back memories of laughter shared over countless cups with his family. Each step felt monumental, leading him closer to a truth buried deep within. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with energy, and as he scanned the room, his heart raced. Faces he recognized, some familiar, others faded with time, turned at the sound of the door opening. But with each gaze fell another weight on him. Would they all see the man he'd become, or the one that had left? "Michael!" a voice boomed from the back, breaking through his spiraling thoughts. It was his older brother, Tommy, his presence commanding. Surprise mingled with confusion as Tommy's wide eyes searched Michael's face. "You're back?" "Hey, Tommy," Michael replied, his voice hoarse as it fought to rise above the noise. Their eyes locked, years of emotions unspooling in that instant. Michael's heart raced, electricity crackling between them. But then, the warmth faded as Tommy's expression shifted, uncertainty painting his features. Just then, Lucas dashed ahead, the whirlwind of innocence and joy somehow managing to cut through the heaviness that loomed over Michael. "Uncle Tommy, look at the puddles." Without waiting for a response, he splashed straight toward his uncle, arms wide open, laughter erupting like confetti. Tommy's confusion melted away as he crouched down, scooping Lucas up and spinning him around, laughter bubbling between them. Seeing their connection pulled at Michael's heartstrings, it was a reminder of all he had missed, the bonds that time and distance couldn't sever. Yet, as Lucas looked from Tommy to his father, excitement evident in his sparkling eyes, Michael's heart clenched. This was the happiness he craved, the family he longed to reclaim. But the question still remained. How would he bridge the chasm created by absence? "Michael," Grace whispered, her hand finding his again. "Whatever happens, remember this moment. You've already made a choice to come back." The warmth of her words brought a sense of grounding. He could feel himself shifting, inching toward whatever lay ahead. He took a deep breath and stepped closer to the group gathered in the corner, his heart hammering. Just then, one of his sisters looked up and gasped, feathering her fingers to her mouth. "Michael?" Time slowed as he opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Would they embrace him with open arms? Would they even care to hear his side of the story, to understand the journey that had brought him back? As their eyes widened with shock, hope battled fear within him, waiting for the words to spill forth. But before he could start, the cafe door burst open, bringing with it a rush of wind and an even greater surprise. What if it was someone they never expected? Grace whispered in his ear, grounding him again right as Michael turned back, just in time to see a figure entering the cafe. His heart skipped a beat. Could it really be? The figure stepped into the cafe, shaking droplets from her hair like a water sprite emerging from a lake. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs as recognition washed over him. It was Marissa, the waitress from all those years ago, the one he couldn't forget. She looked different, older, yet somehow still the light that flickered in his memories. "Marissa," he breathed, barely at the edge of consciousness. She looked across the room, her gaze landing on him. An astonished smile broke across her face, illuminating the heaviness in the air. "Michael, I didn't know you were back." Her voice was a soothing blend of surprise and warmth, kindling embers of hope in him. Everyone in the cafe seemed to drift into quieter conversation, their eyes transitioning from Michael and Tommy to Marissa, like watching a car crash in slow motion. "Yeah, it's been a minute," he said, struggling to find the right words as she approached. "You look great." "Not as great as you." There was a sparkle in her eyes, the same sparkle that had once made him feel young and carefree. The years apart had not diminished the connection he felt. Tommy broke the spell. "What are you doing here, Marissa?" "I work here part-time," she replied, glancing at Lucas, who had wriggled his way between them, undeterred by the grown-ups' emotional reunion. "And you must be Lucas, the little tornado I've heard so much about." "Yeah," Lucas yelled, his grin beaming up at her. "You should see my puddles." The tension in the room eased, laughter weaving through the air. Michael, feeling lighter, took a step toward Marissa. "I didn't know you were back in town." "I never left," she exclaimed, a teasing note in her voice that reminded him of happier times. "Just didn't have a millionaire to sweep me off my feet." "Oh, please," Tommy interjected with a smirk. "He's a regular guy now." Michael felt a warmth rise in his cheeks, caught between the playful banter and the deeper currents of emotion flowing beneath. Marissa's gaze softened, and the laughter faded just a touch. "So, you're really back for good this time?" "I hope so," he answered, the struggle inside him leaking into his voice. "I want to be here. I want to fix things." Her eyes searched his. "You have people who miss you, Michael. Time doesn't just erase love." The air thrummed with unknowing possibilities, a fragile thread connecting them across the gaps of silence built from regret. He wanted to reach out, to grasp that thread, and pull it taut. But vulnerability felt like a treacherous road. Before he could respond, another voice cut through the moment. "Michael, do you want to tell us why you're here?" His sister's tone was gently prodding but laced with anticipation. Every eye was upon him now, waiting, hoping, still uncertain. Michael felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. But now, facing memories and potential futures, it was a weight he was willing to carry. "Yeah, I think it's time for me to explain," he sighed, glancing at Lucas, who was busy coaxing more laughter from Tommy. He inhaled deeply, preparing to reveal the pieces of his heart laid bare. Yet before he could gather his words, a sudden tension enveloped the cafe. The door swung open once again, revealing a silhouette that seemed to freeze the world. The chatter subsided, gasps rising like smoke. Who could possibly follow the very whirlwind of emotions he was just beginning to navigate? "Who is it now?" Grace murmured, anxiety creeping into her voice. Ignoring the tightening in his chest, Michael stepped forward again, curiosity pulling him like a magnet. With a heartbeat taut and exhilarating, he faced the newcomer, wondering just how this unexpected twist would reshape everything. The figure stepped into the light filtering through the cafe window, revealing a familiar face whose presence sent another wave of murmurs rippling through the crowd. Michael's heart pounded harder. He had hoped to face someone. Anyone. But not her. It was Rebecca, the mother of his late wife. Rebecca. His voice caught in his throat, memories flooding back like an overflowing river. It felt like yesterday that they shared laughter and dreams, huddled together over coffee as if they could cheat time. "Michael, Rebecca said softly, her eyes glistening with a mixture of pain and surprise. I didn't think I'd see you here. Likewise, he managed, the weight of years crammed into a single moment. Would she see the shadow of guilt etched on his face as he recalled the last time they'd spoken? Marissa, sensing the shift in atmosphere, hesitated a moment before stepping back. Lucas, however, was oblivious to the tension. He was still bouncing with energy, tugging at Michael's arm, eager to share the latest excitement. "Who's that?" he shouted, pointing enthusiastically at Rebecca. The tension in the room clung thickly as Rebecca knelt to meet Lucas's gaze. "I'm just a friend of your dad's. I remember how much fun you were at birthday parties." Michael felt a sudden dread at the way her voice quivered. Did she recall every detail of that heart-wrenching day when they last met? The grief, still a raw scar in his heart, was a haunting backdrop to everything that had followed. Grace, who had been quietly observing, stepped in. "What a surprise to see you, Rebecca. Have you been well?" The coldness in Grace's tone sliced through the air, catching Michael off guard. It wasn't just Rebecca's presence that shifted the atmosphere, but how Grace regarded her. He had always felt a tension exist between the two, rooted in unhealed wounds of their past. "I'm okay, just busy," Rebecca replied, her voice steady but fragile, each word calculated to mask her discomfort. The moment stretched, thick and full of unspoken words. Michael took a step closer to Rebecca. "You could have told me you were in town. I thought you would prefer it this way, without the reminders," she interrupted, her eyes flaring with imprinted grief. The way she looked at him struck him deep, as if she saw through layers of his bravado to the broken pieces inside. Marissa, sensing this was no longer light-hearted banter, crossed her arms, inching towards Michael. "Is everything all right?" Her concern flickered through her voice like candlelight, casting warmth on the chilly encounter. "No, it's far from all right," Michael finally confessed, feeling the walls he'd built begin to crack. There was more to his return than casual visits and smiles. It was about facing every crevice of his past that he had long chosen to ignore. Rebecca's eyes softened, and for a moment, Michael saw the glint of camaraderie they once had, before loss twisted everything apart. "Michael, what you need to say, timing is everything. You're back, but it's not just about that." Just then, Lucas, ever the whirlwind, joined in. "What is it about, Dad? Are we having a party?" And with that, a burst of laughter erupted, sending everyone into spontaneous grins, breaking the heaviness that had settled like a storm cloud. But Michael felt the lump in his throat return tenfold. He owed everyone more than a brief separation. He owed them truths that could rewrite their future. "Maybe it is time for a party," he replied, forcing a smile. "Or at least a kitchen table talk." Grace narrowed her eyes, skeptically observing him. Just as Michael gathered the courage for the truth he needed to share, a sudden spark of commotion erupted from the front of the cafe, and all eyes spun toward the door once again. "We're not done yet," he whispered to himself, feeling the thread of fate tighten around him. Who now awaited them? Michael's heart raced as the cafe door swung open again, a gust of wind followed by another body. The crowd turned abruptly, their collective breath hitching at the sight. In stepped a young woman, her long hair whipping around her face, and she wore a backpack that seemed far too large for her slight frame. Her eyes were wide, scanning the room with frenetic energy until they landed on Michael. "Dad!" she exclaimed, her voice high and clear, slicing through the tension like a knife. Michael's gaze locked onto her, and in that moment, all the earlier discomfort faded away, replaced by disbelief. Emma. He couldn't quite process what he was seeing. It had been years since he last laid eyes on her. She wasn't the little girl he remembered. No. She had grown into a young woman, her face now mapped with determination and surprise. A mixture of innocence and tenacity. "Why didn't you tell me you were back?" she said, her face lighting up with joy, confusion dancing in her eyes as she rushed closer. "I was just about to call you." "Where have you been?" he managed, feeling as if he'd been punched in the gut, the question tumbling out before he could rein it in. There were a million other things he wanted to ask. About school, her life. Yet the realization hit harder than he expected. He had missed so much of her life. Rebecca's heavy presence felt smaller beside Emma's exuberance. The heat of the moment shifted once more, opening space for a new kind of tension. "You're here to see him?" she asked, her voice cool, arms crossing over her chest as if shielding herself from the remark. "I was actually visiting friends, but I wanted to find you too, Michael," Emma replied, glancing knowingly between the two older adults before her attention returned to him. "I thought maybe you'd be at home." Michael shook his head, guilt-like fingers curling around his throat. I didn't really have a home when I got back. Everything's a bit up in the air." The world around them faded away, leaving Michael painfully aware of the distance he had put between himself and his daughter, a chasm formed by choices made and paths never taken. "I'm sorry," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Marissa, who had been observing the family reunion with cautious optimism, took a step closer, her hand instinctively moving to rest on Michael's arm, offering him a lifeline in a sea of emotions. "Hey, why don't we sit down and talk? It could be an impromptu family gathering," she suggested, attempting to bring some levity back into the room. Lucas jumped in, not fully understanding the gravity but eager for more attention. "Yeah, let's have a party. I love parties." Grace rolled her eyes slightly, her tight expression slightly softening as she took in Emma's enthusiasm. The environment shifted again, intertwining sadness and joy. It all felt so profound but also so mundane, a regular cafe visit morphing into a family reunion that begged to be shared. Emma looked between them, her excitement fading into uncertainty. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" Michael blinked, the weight of his past pressing heavily against his chest. "It's complicated," he said, swallowing hard, the truth on the tip of his tongue. He caught Rebecca's gaze, which lingered on him, her expression holding questions just as heavy. But before he could dive deeper into the unfolding truth, the truth that had haunted him for so long, he caught sight of movement from the cafe entrance. Another visitor was making their way toward them, and a knot tightened in his stomach as dread rippled through the entire room once again. What now could possibly change everything? As the cafe door swung open wide, a chilly draft rushed in, accompanied by an imposing figure dressed in a well-tailored suit. Michael's heart sank. The man strode with purpose, his gaze darting around the room, before settling on Michael and Emma. "Dad!" Emma's voice cut through the tension again, but this time she sounded alarmed. Michael's mind scrambled. Could this be someone from his past? A business associate? Panic rippled through him. The man approached, his dark eyes scanning Emma, then sliding back to Michael with a predatory intensity. "Michael, we need to talk," he said, his voice smooth but carrying an edge that sent a shiver down Michael's spine. "Who are you?" Emma demanded, stepping protectively closer to her father, her earlier excitement shifting to a fierce defensiveness. It took everything in Michael not to show the turmoil storming within. "This is not the time or place," he replied, forcing his voice to be steady. "What do you want?" "Just a bit of business," the man said coolly, a small, enigmatic smile playing at the corners of his lips. "But it seems you've made things very complicated for yourself, haven't you? I thought we were past this." "Past what?" Michael's voice rose, fueled by protective instincts for both Emma and the people around them. The cafe patrons began to murmur, curious eyes shifting between the trio. Michael could feel the weight of their stares, but his focus remained locked on the stranger, whose words felt like daggers aimed directly at his heart. The agreement, Michael. You walked away, thinking it would all just disappear, the man hissed, stepping closer. But some debts, well, they don't just vanish. A flash of confusion and concern crossed Emma's face. What are you talking about? She asked, bewildered. Michael glanced at Emma, then back at the man. There is no agreement. I left that life behind. The man chuckled, a cold sound. Did you really? Because it seems you have a daughter to consider now. He glanced at Emma, an eyebrow cocked in mock amusement. And I do believe she's due some explanations, don't you? Even if Michael wanted to deny what he'd done in the past, the truth clawed its way up. He had thought he left it all behind, but maybe some shadows didn't fade with distance. Stay away from her, Michael said, his voice low and urgent. But fear festered beneath the surface. The room felt smaller, the buzzing of the cafe drowned out by the blood rushing in his ears. Or what? The man slung back, a challenge wrapped in a sneer. You'll have to make some difficult choices, Michael. You always do. The room froze, tension coiling tighter like a spring. Michael turned toward Emma, desperately searching her face for understanding, for help. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about his daughter, and all the years of separation, the choices he had made and the consequences they brewed on the surface. Dad? Emma asked, her voice trembling with emotion, pulling at the frayed edges of Michael's heart. What's happening? Before Michael could respond, the man's phone buzzed, breaking the suffocating silence. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. Looks like the time for chit-chat is over, he said, turning to leave but not before casting one last ominous look back at Michael. Think long and hard about what you're willing to lose. As the stranger left, the cafe seemed to exhale. A collective breath held too long, releasing into soft murmurs of concern. Emma's eyes filled with a mixture of fear and confusion. Dad, what was that all about? You're scaring me. Michael's throat tightened. It was more than just scaring her. It was his entire world crashing down again, the ghosts of his past clawing back, threatening to yank him down into darkness once more. How would he ever explain this? How could he shield her from the mess he had made? With trembling hands, he met her gaze, uncertainty swirling in his heart. I promise, Emma. I'll explain everything, he began. But would the truth strengthen their bond, or shatter it? As the weight of his words hung heavily in the air, Michael felt the urgency seeping in. What lay ahead might change everything again. And with that thought, he realized he was standing at the edge of a precipice, poised for a plunge into uncertainty that had the potential to transform not just his life, but Emma's as well. Would he pull her back, or would they both fall? In the moments that followed, the air in the cafe was thick with unspoken words and anxious glances. Michael could feel hearts pounding around him, including his own. It felt like a dam had burst, releasing a torrent of old fears and newly ignited hopes. Are you okay? Grace's voice broke through the fog of his anxiety. She stepped closer, concern etched across her face. Michael nodded slowly, but inside, a storm brewed. Lucas, oblivious to the weight of the moment, tugged at Michael's side, his innocent laughter echoing like a ray of sunshine. Can we jump in puddles again? He chirped, a reminder of the joy hidden beneath the chaos. But this wasn't just about puddles anymore. It was about facing the truth. Emma's eyes searched his, brimming with confusion and fear. What did that man mean? What agreement? The storm roiled in Michael's heart. He had evaded this moment for years, hidden behind walls built from guilt and shame. But there, with his daughter's eyes piercing into his soul, he knew he could no longer delay. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself. Emma, I owe you an explanation. There are parts of my life you don't know, and I didn't want to burden you with this, but I can't keep lying to you. Emma's expression hardened with uncertainty, while Rebecca stepped closer, an uncharacteristic solidarity forming in their shared concern for Michael's daughter. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it together," Rebecca offered softly, her love for Michael radiating through the tension. He swallowed hard, meeting Emma's gaze with open honesty. "There were choices I made that led to some dangerous people. I walked away, trying to escape that life. And I thought I did." "Escape?" Emma's voice cracked, confusion deepening. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "I was ashamed," he admitted, emotions flooding back, leaving him dizzy. "I wanted to protect you from the fallout of my decisions, but clearly it caught up to me. And that man, he's connected to a past I can't just shake off." "What does that mean for us?" she asked, her resolve unbending, but her voice trembled like a leaf in the wind. "It means—" Michael hesitated, fighting against the guilt that threatened to swallow him whole. "It means I will always fight for you. For us." Silence enveloped the group. He gazed at Lucas, who was now mimicking an exaggerated splashing motion, completely unaware of the storm raging around them. Michael took a step forward, urgency igniting within him. "I know I've messed up, but I want to make things right now. I thought running away would fix everything, but I realize there's nothing more important than our family. I can't let anyone take that away from us. Not again." With every measured word, the confidence of his convictions grew. He felt a spark reignite. His expression met Grace's, whose steady gaze passed silent encouragement. Would they all be there for him as he navigated this treacherous terrain? Emma's brow furrowed, her defenses softening just slightly. "You're really serious about this? You want to fix things? You want to be my dad?" He nodded, desperation tempered with sincerity. "More than anything. I know it won't be easy, but I'm not going anywhere this time. I promise." Gradually, the tension in the room dissipated, as love fought to overtake fear. Her stiff posture melted, and for the first time, a glimmer of hope sparked in Emma's eyes. "It sounds really hard," she said softly, "but if you're willing to try, I'll try too." That declaration sent a wave of relief crashing through him. "We'll tackle it together, as a family, because that's what we are." The cafe hummed with newfound energy, a collective heartbeat echoing redemption. Rebecca smiled then, her proud expression warming the room. "You might be surprised at what love can overcome." "I've missed so much," Michael said tenderly. "But I'm not going to miss out on being here. Not for you or anyone else." Lucas chimed in, clad in joy and excitement. "Yes, party time! We can celebrate!" Everyone chuckled, and for a moment, the heaviness of the past lifted like an early morning fog. The broken paths began to look like bridges instead, connecting love to forgiveness, laughter to healing. The phrase echoed in his mind. Together, they would build a new narrative, a legacy of connection, truth, and joy. "Let's start right here." He looked around at the laughter that swirled through the cafe. "Let's share stories. Let's embrace what's next with open hearts." At that moment, laughter rang out in sincere rhythm. It was simple, yet profound, gathering the fragments of their lives and leaving room for the beauty of new beginnings. Through the door opened by trust, they began to chart a future bathed in the light of hope. Michael's heart felt full, like the familiar warmth of the morning sun breaking through after a storm. The healing journey awaited, but together they would step into tomorrow with courage, love, and a promise unbroken. And now, readers, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help this community grow. Comment your reactions about this ending and share your feelings. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can keep spreading these stories of hope and love.